Over much of the world, protests now are raging. Anti-lockdown protests, anti-vaccine passport protests, protests against the continued incursion of governmental forces into the private lives of citizens, protests against forced vaccinations, protests against the specter of people being not allowed to, basically being treated as second-class citizens if they are unvaxxed. This is happening. This has been happening over the last week or so. It's been happening in numerous European countries, including Ireland, Greece, France, England, the Netherlands. It's also these kinds of protests have also been taking place in Australia, where there is still this severe medical tyranny being grinding the citizenry underfoot. And these protests are, predictably enough, not getting much media attention, or when they do get media attention, the media, the mainstream media, makes every effort to mitigate the numbers, to say there weren't that many people there, or they take the tack of saying these were a bunch of ne'er-do-wells, these were a bunch of violent people who attacked cops, who attacked police horses, who did this or did that. And so, if there are a few bad apples, as they say, those bad apples get fixated upon as if they were the norm, when in fact these protests are, if angry and strident, and I think angry and strident for good reason, they are not violent protests. But what I see happening in the world right now parallels the circumstances in my book, The Insurrectionist, in which, following this mysterious attack on numerous cities of the world, there's no effort made by the global government. By then, of course, the world has slid into complete globalist tyranny. There's no effort made to seek redress for these attacks, but instead the people of the world are simply told that they must just deal with the new normal. People take to the streets and protest, and they are gunned down ruthlessly, and then the mainstream media reports that the protesters themselves were violent, and that the police were, the riot cops were there. They had to do what they did in order to quell the violence that was coming from these ne'er-do-well protesters. Well, what's been going on with protesters, anti-lockdown protesters, anti-vaccine passport protesters, in various countries across the world? We haven't seen anything like what takes place in my book yet, but things seem to be escalating, and brutality is the brutality is particularly bad in certain places, like Australia. Australia seems to be among the worst, as far as this is a place where a pregnant woman was arrested in her home and dragged away after she got on Facebook and said we should have a demonstration for freedom. They broke into her home and dragged her off to jail, even though she was visibly pregnant at the time. all for wanting to have a free assembly of people, which is a God-given right. I've seen video of police, taking down citizens, pushing them to the ground, who are doing absolutely nothing violent. Dressed in their stupid little uniforms. They're like I don't know, reflector crossing guard uniforms that don't really exactly look fearsome. But they're still taking part in these kinds of brutal and tyrannical takedowns of private citizens who are doing nothing that warrants such behavior. So, again, I just wanted to point out this is what is going on, and is it going to escalate from here? Are we going to see some kind of problem reaction solution? Are these protests going to play a part in there being some compromise where they say, okay, we'll not make you have to use vaccine passports for everything, but you will have to use them for this, that, or the other thing. I have a very strong impression that these protests are not happening, are not being orchestrated by any nefarious organization, intent upon creating agitation. I think there's just a lot of people out there who are pissed off, rightly so, about seeing their rights and freedoms being taken away for the sake of this medical tyranny that they're trying to impose upon the world, all for the sake of this bogus so-called pandemic with 99.6% survivability rate. The gall of it, the effrontery of it, not that I would think that these kinds of incursions upon people's rights and liberties would be warranted, even if it were for the sake of a legitimate pandemic, which actually killed a much higher percentage of people, but somehow the fact that they're using this absolutely bogus, less virulent than the flu virus to do all of these, to push all of this mischief and mayhem and tyranny and violence and brutality, and continue to erode the rights of supposed free people. That's not a good sign. But I'm curious to know where this will all lead. I know that probably everybody out there has pessimistic prognostications. I don't really relish the idea of getting the comment boxes getting filled with people saying it's over. It's just going to get worse and worse. That's not exactly what the doctor ordered right now. Not that we have to be foolishly optimistic, but I would say that the existence of these protests, though they've been ignored, though they've attempted to downplay them, though they've attempted to slander them by saying they're a bunch of racist, sexist, neo-Nazis who are violent or whatever. Though they try all of these tactics, still these demonstrations are continuing to grow, and Germany, France, Greece, England, Ireland, Australia, and probably some other places that I'm not thinking of right now. This is something that is noteworthy and must be pointed out, must be said, must be talked about. And so I'm talking about it here, because if nobody else is going to talk about it, then at least I will, with my measly subscription count. At least I'll get the word out to at least some degree. But pay attention to this stuff. It's happening. God bless those who are out there making themselves heard, saying hell no to all of the atrocities that they are attempting to implement right now. And we'll see where all this goes. And again, can't help but notice the parallels to my book, even though things aren't quite as extreme yet as that which is depicted in The Insurrectionist. But still, the parallels are there. Thanks for watching. My name's Andy Nowicki. Check out my work at altrightnovelist.com. And you can buy The Insurrectionist from terrorhousepress.com. And thanks for watching.